Hi, today is the 11th of November 2015. It's Remembrance Day in Canada. As you can see, it is a beautiful sunny day, but it's quite cold as I'm near the top of a mountain at an elevation of about 3,000 feet. If you look carefully, you'll notice a dusting of snow on the trees on the summits behind me at about 4,700 feet. Today I'm going to show you the new Yamaha YZF-R3. I'm also going to compare it technically to other members of the YZF-R line, the R1, the R6, and the R125. The R3 was introduced in 2015. It's powered by a completely new 321cc liquid-cooled parallel twin engine that utilizes the same cross-plane technology Yamaha has employed in the R1. The R3 weighs 368 pounds, produces 42 horsepower at the crank at 10,750 RPM. Cycle World has dyno tested an R3 and found it makes 37 horsepower at the rear wheel. Top speed is claimed 112 miles per hour. I think the YZF-R moniker is a bit of a misnomer, intended to appeal to new riders who want the cachet associated with Yamaha's higher hyper-performance bikes. This FZ6 has far more in common with the R3. To begin with, the R3 is much softer in terms of engine tuning, chassis, suspension and ergonomics than any of the other YZF-Rs. It is very much a road bike, whereas the other YZF-Rs are much more performance oriented. The 1000cc R1 produces 200 horsepower, and the R6 produces over 130 horsepower. If the R3 were in the same state of tune as the R6, it would produce about 69 horsepower. That's an immense 29 horsepower over what it actually produces. The R3 has a steel tube frame, which Yamaha refers to as a diamond tube frame. However, it seems to me to be little different technologically from the type of steel tubing used in chassis design for over 100 years. All of the other YZF-Rs, even the little R125, which I've also ridden by the way, are equipped with Yamaha's rigid Delta box frame. The R3 also lacks the ram air induction that the R6 and the R1 are equipped with, and that give it that extra horsepower. The R3 has soft, non-adjustable rear shock and conventional fork that do not resemble the taut, fully adjustable suspension and upside-down forks that grace the R1 and the R6. Even the R125 has an upside-down fork. Now, have a look at the brakes. You'll notice a single disc at the front and a disc at the back. Now, that single disc at the front does work reasonably well at stopping the bike, although it does lack some initial feel, but a second disc would be an improvement. I think Yamaha made a mistake in equipping the R3 with bias ply Michelin Pilot tires. One thing I've learned during many years of riding is the importance of quality tires. Now, better tires would not have significantly increased the cost of this bike. And once mine are worn out, I'll be replacing them with a good set of radials. The bars are mounted above the triple clamps, which means the bike is more comfortable than you might expect for a sport bike, and it also has lighter handling, which will be appreciated by newer riders. My aching back would prefer the bars to be higher and the foot pegs a little lower, but it's still more comfortable than I expected. The R3 is available in 3 color schemes, black with red trim as you see here, and I particularly like the red trim on the wheels. It also comes in blue with pale grey and red and white. Now the blue one would have most matched my jacket. However, black was the only thing left when I went to this shop. These bikes sold very, very quickly. There were only 2 of them left in the store when I went to purchase them. With an MSRP of 4,999 Canadian, you can understand why. This bike has some nice details. I particularly like the dashboard, which I'm going to show you now. It has a digital speedometer. It's very easy to read. It also has a gear indicator, which I've never needed before, but is a nice bonus, and a fuel gauge. Now, if you're old like me, you'll remember that most of the older bikes didn't have fuel gauges. They had a little tap under the tank which allowed you to switch it over to the reserve. And if you ever overestimated the amount of fuel you had in that tank as you were passing the last fuel station on the way to nowhere, then you might find yourself pushing your bike along the side of the highway, which certainly happened to me when I was young. So I appreciate that gauge. Now personally I would like the R3 to produce at least another 10 horsepower, but to be fair, I recognize that the target market for this bike is novice riders. I am a very experienced rider. I've owned over 9 motorcycles and ridden many more over a period of more than 30 years. I've ridden everything from 50cc singles all the way up to the 6-cylinder 1000cc Honda CBX, and bikes have been my primary mode of transportation for most of my adult life, regardless of the weather. I'm going to compare it to some bikes that I've owned. This is my Yamaha YZF-R3 Radian, which is a 600cc parallel 4, made in 1986. It weighed 434 pounds, produced 66 horsepower, and had a top speed of 125 miles per hour. This was actually my favorite bike. I had it for a long time, close to 20 years, and sold it for $75, which I really regret now. Another bike is the MZ-125RT. This is a single-cylinder 4-stroke that weighed 293 pounds and produced 15 horsepower with a top speed of 67 miles per hour. Not bad for a 4-stroke, kind of slow compared to some of the 2-strokes I used to ride in my youth. And then there's this Honda CBX 250, which is a 4-stroke single weighing 255 pounds and producing about 25 horsepower, and with a top speed of 90 miles an hour to 102 miles per hour, depending which magazine you were reading at the time. Now the R3 is very small, it's light, its agility and nimble handling remind me of riding a very fast 125, albeit with double the usual horsepower. Of the bikes I've owned, the CBX 250 was the most similar in terms of weight and power, but the R3 is in a completely different league. It's much faster and it just feels more like a real bike than the CBX 250. My Radian had more speed and more power, but I'm certain that on a twisty road the R3 would have outrun it. The Radian weighed 70 pounds more, and its suspension, even in 1986 when it was made, was fairly low tech. Now I think Yamaha did an excellent job of designing this bike. It'll cater to the needs of new riders. It'll grow with them, and what I mean by saying that is, as their skills increase, they will not rapidly outgrow the bike. Now, I would have been ecstatic if I'd owned this bike when I was young. Of course, where I came from, when you turn 16, you were not allowed to ride anything bigger than a 50cc. And then at 18, you could move up to 100 or now 150 cc's. Now, the R3 is also just interesting enough to appeal to experienced riders like myself who are looking for a low-cost commuter that can also offer a reasonably spirited weekend ride. The build quality and finish are all good, exactly what you would expect from Yamaha, and the styling is very smart. The R3 certainly looks like a little superbike, even if its appearance is misleading. I would highly recommend this bike to anyone who is a novice rider, or again, like me, who is just looking for something relatively cheap to run. I did quite a bit of research before I bought this bike. I was initially looking for something larger. However, the way the insurance works here in British Columbia is, if it's 111 cc's to 400 cc's, the insurance cost is half the cost of a bike 401 to 750 cc's, which pushed me down below 400. So the insurance is cheap compared to larger bikes, not much larger bikes, and fuel cost obviously is very good. Alright, thank you for watching my video. I'll post some more. Hopefully I'll be posting some riding videos sometime soon.